Okay, right. I don't even know where to place these guys now. It's like they're just getting started, and I don't know. You don't want me to do my program, Abby. It's not going to happen. Well, the Shagun Johnson band there. But let's get into the conversation this morning. It's a brand new year. I know you all are expectant of many new things in Nigeria. Improvement in the economy, security, electioneering, and so on. Many people opine that this year is not a year for governance. It's a year for electioneering. That doesn't sound like good news, but how well can government do to give us the Nigeria we yearn for? Elections or no elections? And why must government, or rather governance, pause or steep when we're having elections? Well, I'm not the only one here to have this conversation. We have a couple of guests in the studio and two others joining us virtually. Julie Odigio is here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So good to have you again.
Great. Happy New Year.
Yeah, we should say as well as Norua Edopolo, who is a social commentator. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
And nothing like family coming together to make Nigeria work, right?
Pure coincidence.
Well, that's what happens when you change your name.
I guess so. That's true. That is very true.
But let me begin with you, madam. Sure. So it's a brand new year. Mm-hmm. And as you very well know, as you train us young people to believe, every beginning comes with hopes, mm-hmm. comes with aspirations, mm-hmm. comes with expectations. New Year resolutions and all of that. But then it would seem like over the years, hopes and aspirations in the country or about the country seem to steep because of so many things. What are your hopes for Nigeria in 2022?
I think my primary hope is that hope will never die. That hope for the greatness of this country, this Nigeria, to be realized, that hope will never die. I'm doing a refresher course in French, believe it or not, and I have wonderful people in class with me. And every single one of them, young people, 20s, early 30s, are planning to leave the country. And it suggests to me that an entire generation is losing hope in our future. And so my primary hope is that that does not happen. Because if it does, if we lose our youth, we lose our future, by definition, obviously. So that we never lose hope, that we continue to invest ourselves, our aspirations, our encouragements in the country really is so important. It's paramount. And January is a pretty good time to renew those hopes.
Okay. Just before I bring in Mr. Edopolo, two other guests are with us here. Shegun Bogunje is a security engineer. He joins us virtually, as well as Ezekiel Nyaitok, who is founder Nigeria First, also joining us virtually from Owerri. Good morning, gentlemen. I'll come to you in a short while. But Mr. Edopolo, same question, hopes. It is a scary thought, what Madam just said now, and it's a question I've asked a few young people, well, younger people myself, because I'm still a young man, I don't have white hair. It's a question I've asked a number of younger people as well, and it would seem like while preaching it, doing it is not something that they want to think about. But what are your own hopes for 2022?
When I was in my 20s, and I used to hear Wole Soyinka say that his generation was a wasted generation, I said, no, that's not going to be our portion. Yeah? I'm in my 50s now, and I'm fighting hard not to say the same thing. But having said that, Nigeria is a country that no one can truly say can define us fully. We have managed to upstage every definition, every prognosis, whatever it is, that we are still standing, that you and I can have this conversation in this same Lagos where a couple of days ago, you know what I mean? So I think after the Americans, or even side by side the Americans, I think we are the next set of people in this world who are the most hopeful people. Nigerians succeed in spite of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yes, the young people are leaving, but guess what? Young people are also doing great things in Nigeria. I mean, check where all the money is coming to. It's our startups run by the young people. So I've had this conversation with myself over and over again, and my conclusion is that Nigeria will triumph. All right? I believe in this country. It's very difficult to say so now, but just looking at the history. I mean, look at us and COVID, for example. There's no explanation to why we're not dying. Absolutely none.
Yeah.
All right? So just drawing from our history, our ability to bounce back, not once, not twice have we gotten to the precipice, and for some strange reason, we kind of come back again. And so I believe that Nigeria will succeed. So it's almost like getting water out of stone. But yes, I do believe.
Two of you have done something already to me. While Madam was speaking, I remembered Andrew. That's social engineering campaign. And as you were speaking, I remember Beno Mario's song, Nigeria Go Survive.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Anyway, I don't even want to get into the musicals now, even though we have a band to it. Segun Mabukunje is a security engineer. In terms of security engineering, so I'm going to use your precise designation, so to speak, for this conversation. Okay, I understand that we do not have both of them yet. But one of the challenges that we have seen, let me come back to you, madam. As I said, talking about the things as you began to talk, I just remembered that social campaign. Andrew,
Absolutely.
Don't check out.
Yes.
The same thing reflected in that song by Beno Marioge, Andrew, no check out, and all of that. That was significant then. And it was something championed by government on a national broadcast platform.
Absolutely.
Radio stations that belonged to government carried out a lot of these. All of that information always came from the Federal Ministry of Information at the time for the radio stations and the television stations to broadcast. Always a message from government. That doesn't seem to be happening these days, or is it? Maybe I'm missing it.
Well, as my brother just said, young people are doing very interesting things in this country, including leaving the country but not cutting their ties. I don't know that people still expect that level of upward delegation to government that we once took for granted. I think that there's a greater spirit of autonomy. You might say on the negative side, on the con side, that people have lost faith in government. And so that even if that message came out of government, it wouldn't be well received. So there's a lot going on. I mean, the dynamic in the country is tremendous. I was writing to a group that I belong to probably 2 weeks ago. And I said, we're going through a democracy of trial and terror. Not just trial and error, but trial and terror. I mean, democracy is it's a process as well as a destination. And so, I mean, look at America, for example. Look at India. There's back and forth, there is progress, and then there's slippage. We're no different. And so I think that in terms of government messaging, government responsibility, government accountability, people would second guess any message coming out of at least today's government. And I think young people are self-starters. Their sense of autonomy in this country is amazing. And wherever we go, we remain Nigerians. So I'm not sure that we would entrust, or perhaps we should even entrust such a resounding message to today's government. I don't think we should or can.
Wow. Should or can. What's your take on that?
I agree absolutely.
Is it because she's a sister?
No, because it makes sense.
But it's important. I asked advisedly. It's important that, because if you do not trust the system, you can't get into that system to make it better. So on the one hand, we're advocating that young people should come into politics. On the other hand, we're saying the process is untrustworthy. Then there's a problem there.
Well, yeah, for me, I think that what needs to happen is that we must find a way to get in on our own terms.
Yeah.
Because it is clear now that if you leave, this set of people to run their affairs, they will run us aground. All right? It's also clear that they wield so much power over us. All right? So, yes, you can do a lot on your own, which is what is happening. She speaks of autonomy. All right? Because, today you can run your business, make your money without having any contact whatsoever with government. Okay? Now, but the truth is, what then happens is that government becomes your greatest obstacle, in a manner of speaking. All right? Every time you have to relate with government, is with fear and trepidation. Okay? So therefore, what do we do? Just the same way that we've survived in spite of them, we also must find ways to take back governance in spite of them. All right? So, and I think that's where the ray of hope, of light begins to come, to shine through that. There's something I can do as a young person to bring about change. Okay? And so I think that's the conversation that we should begin to have with the young people, that beyond what you do, on Twitter, in your room, what else can you do? So, for example, you can get a voter's card. The truth is, if 10% of the guys who were at the toll gate were to go to the polling booths at the next elections, they can actually bring about change, as in who runs the affairs of this country. Okay. So there is hope in that regard.
But it's still taking you up on that, the intervention of young people. There's something the vice president said, and he said it more than once. In fact, I got privileged information that even before he knew he was going to be vice president, he'd been doing everything he could on his own individual capacity to mobilize young people.
That's true.
To get into, okay, you can validate that. So the question then is, one of the things that he has said consistently is, in order to make the kind of significant change you want, advocacy is fantastic, but from his own experience as an advocacy champion and as a government official, the differences are clear. As an advocate, you can only advocate. But when you are in government, you can influence change on a much larger scale, which then brings to the question of the kind of policies that will encourage young people to get into the system. Because unless we have those kinds of enabling environments, that entry level might still be a challenge.
May I interject, if you don't mind?
Okay.
I've been thinking a lot about community. So there's something between government, okay, and advocacy. And I think it's community action. I live in Lekki, and so I go for walks. And I look at the gutters and I am blown away. The squalor, the filth is just unbelievable. You're looking at average rents for a 2-bedroom apartment of 3 million naira. And yet the gutters are stagnant, they're filthy, they're breeding mosquitoes. And I'm saying to myself, but we're a community. Why can't we take the initiative to, manage our environment better?
And not wait for government.
Precisely.
Okay.
So there is a gap that's available to each and every one of us working in concert between advocacy and government, if you like. And I think that gap is community action. And I think that one of the things we can all commit to from 2022 is to take back, the power that we've lost, the power that we've given up, the power that we've relinquished, to take it back in this kind of community action.
Perhaps a good way to begin would be, how did we lose it in the first place?
Well,
how
this
did
is
we
a
give it
problem.
up?
This is a problem, definitely.
Okay. Just before I come to you, let me introduce Seun Mabogunje, who is a security engineer. I was trying to throw a question at him earlier. Thanks for joining us this morning, as well as Ezekiel Nyaitok, founder Nigeria First, joins us also virtually from Owerri. Well, Mr. Nyaitok, let me ask you this. It's a year in which a lot more attention will be given to politicking and electioneering. And from experience, it would seem like governance takes the backstage. Doesn't stop, but just kind of steeps a little. Do you see any chance of that trend or trajectory reversing this year?
First, thanks for having me. Second, I thank God that we've all lived to see 2022. So I wish all Nigerians a very, very thoughtful, deliberate, and intentional 2022. Back to the issue of same will continue until we decide that it should not continue. We will not decide that it will not continue except we are made to see the inevitable concomitant of continuing in the trajectory that we are going. Unless we are made to understand what government is and what politics is, the relationship between governance and politics in Nigeria's peculiar circumstance, and why we have become the poverty capital of the world. When we are able to enlighten our young people where our hope of a good future resides in the first instance, when we that call ourselves women and men of conscience step in and enlighten our young people, whom we cannot blame for acting the way they are doing because they are acting true to type as we have taught them, when we wake up, when we get remorseful for how we have been either complacent or complicit, then we will be able to arm these young people with the necessary ammunition to save us, to rescue us. Aside from that, you do the same thing the same way, you get the same result, and they have already started gearing up.
You have, okay, permit me to use this term. You have accused us of complicity and complacency. Maybe complacency first and then complicity. It would seem like you're saying both are intertwined, and advisedly so. But then complacency is usually a product of being sidelined, don't you think? That's if people feel, for instance, that they're not part of the process. It would seem like, you know what, they don't want me here, so I'm not dancing to the music.
You know, it's politicians are amazing people. They are absolutely geniuses or ingenious at their game. They know what they want to do. They know the narrative they want to push. They get us to push their narrative. One of such narratives is that we have been sidelined. One of such narratives is that we are handicapped. One of such narratives is that there's nothing we can do about it. And it is such a lie from the pit of hell from those of us that have been to school, even secondary school alone. What is election? How is election run? What is government? What is the recruitment process? They come to you and tell you, you can't do anything, take this money, give us your vote. You collect the money, you give them their vote. They get into power. They make you poorer so that next time they come to you, your price will be lower. And that's just the game. What stops us from saying, for goodness sake, money of one day, 4,000 naira, 2,000 naira, 500 naira? Oh, no, 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 no. We are going to insist on a credible electoral process. And let me tell you something, brother. The day Nigerians say, no way, there's nothing the president can do about it. There's nothing the National Assembly can do about it. All we need to do is to enlighten them and guide them properly so that we don't have a revolution that has no direction. So I think that we have a say. We can do it. They cannot sideline us because the food that one person cooks, the whole nation can eat. But the food that the whole community eats, if cooks, one person cannot eat. And that is what we are coming out to enlighten people and say, enough is enough. And that's what we're going to do in 2022.
Let me bring in Mr. Mabogunje on this. You've also heard, Mr. Mabogunje, the president say over and over again that, even in his New Year message, that government recognizes that security is still a significant challenge that the government is contending with. In terms of how far we have come, and then every government official, at least a good number of government officials, have always located a nexus between insecurity and poverty or unemployment and all of those things. So social vices are responsible for some of these challenges. In terms of our security engineering, do you see us piloting affairs or even constructing our engineering, our security engineering in that direction?
Good morning, and let me also start by wishing Nigeria a very happy new year, and to pray and hope that 2022 will be a much better year than 2021. But when we come to the issue of security, like I always say, you can't isolate security from what's going on all over the place. In other words, security is more a consequence of set of failed governance, so to speak. If things are not right, if people are not employed, if people are not, out of poverty, you will keep having a security situation. And if you keep using one single approach to face security, the problem will not disappear because there's a lot of fuel. There's a lot of, people out there who don't have a job and who don't see an option to their existence other than crime or acts of insecurity. So we must always look at security from a totally holistic approach, which is how do we engage with these people and move them out of crime? How do we create more jobs so that they have an alternative to crime or to security? So we can keep sending our soldiers after them, sending our policemen after them, but they will keep coming because there's an endless supply of young men and women who don't have an alternative. And the space here is not providing that alternative. Those that can escape, they go out. It was said earlier that why are the young people going out? Those are the ones that don't see any hope within this system and want to go out to look for better chance, and they don't want to go into crime. But there's a much larger percentage of young people that don't even have that option of leaving the country, and they are equally frustrated. So if we don't engage and try to reduce the numbers of these people and give them hope, give them employment, let them see the opportunity, there will always be a security challenge. So to answer your question, I think the approach government has to take moving forward is not just the kinetic approach, sending our troops after them, but looking for ways of getting them employed, showing them an alternative to life, to what they're doing now. And that really is my message, that we can keep going after these criminals, killing them and all that, but they'll keep coming. So we need to look for other ways of engaging them so that they can have an alternative to a life of crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mabuje. Madam, so the president signed the appropriation bill yesterday. I know you are eager to contribute to some of the things that you have said, but perhaps by way of probing some of the actions that government has taken or will take in our interest, so to speak, in the year 2022. The president signed that bill, but he had reservations. In fact, one of the reservations, caught my own attention specifically, and he was talking about the fact that on the one hand, some of the projects that the National Assembly removed, about 10,000 projects were either cut down or, their budgets were removed or lowered significantly and all of that. And that they included something in the region of 6,500 and something projects that were largely the responsibility of state and local governments. That's at the federal level. And he also talked about the fact that some of the projects that were assigned to some of these MDAs of government, they didn't consider, one, the capacity of those MDAs to get them done, and two, the sustainability or the required sustainability funding for those projects. What's your take on those?
Worry, because we should have progressed beyond such banalities. The issue of sustainability, the competencies, whether things belong to local government or state, we shouldn't be having those conversations now. These should be categories that are cut and dried, The Constitution is pretty clear on these things, and we should just follow. Our accounting, our budgeting should follow certain norms. If we haven't established those norms yet, what are we doing? You know, you can't come back and beat your chest every January or so as if these are novelties. They're not. They are perennial problems that we ought to be solving, at least progressively, assuming that we can't solve them in one fell swoop. This is not what we need to hear as a country, given the situation we're in, the economics of the country, the social, the security issues. You know, I would expect a more mature discussion of our budget. It is unconscionable that our president has taken a stance that, you know, would lead one to assume that he had not seen it in advance, that it has not been debated, it has not been analyzed.
No, it wasn't. He presented a bill in August.
Yes.
And that bill was what, of course, as is the norm, the National Assembly is going to interrogate it and all of that. And those are the issues that he raised.
And quite rightly so.
Exactly.
Yes, but we're arguing about things that are so basic, given what is confronting us. I mean, our fiscal policy, monetary policy. I mean, there's so many things that that ought to entitle one to expect a more mature approach to budgeting at this point, at the federal level in this country. We can't claim that we have capacity issues at that level. I know we've gone beyond that stage. So why are we having these basic, very fundamental conversations that ought to have been dealt with by now? We have look, what are we spending on education? Or rather, what are we not spending on education, to be more precise? The social welfare sector in this country is really seriously underfunded. Seriously, and it has been underfunded for at least 2 decades. This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of our youth, our women, and our most vulnerable. So I don't know why we're having a conversation about constitutional competencies. We ought to be having a conversation and successive conversations about how we're going to invest and reinvest in the well-being of this country so that we can get up off our knees.
Well, Mr. Dokpolo, part of the president's comments also included that, look, some of these adjustments that have been made by the National Assembly could frustrate implementation of this budget. Yes,
and, you know, I mean, just thinking, I'm not a government person, but my thinking would have been that the party, APC, would have a think tank that would have members of the party, the legislature, and the executive working behind the scenes. Are you getting it? To articulate how they want to move Nigeria forward. And so, at that level, these conversations would have been, you know, held and agreed such that when they then come out, we see the policy of the party being implemented. I don't know if you're getting it, because, I mean, you know, when you say, for example, that a party controls the Senate, controls the House of Reps, controls the executive, what that means is that they are working in tandem. What that means is that they can implement their policies. So when you then hear them come out in the open, you know, and it's like a husband and wife coming out and openly disagreeing, you would have thought that you guys should have sorted this out, you know, last night. So the impression you get, therefore, is that, you know, we have cowboys running the show. Because, I mean, why would the president be telling us that his colleagues that are supposed to have met, agreed, you know, this is what... So when you can see why, you know, from, you know, it's like on your marks, get set, you know, pause. By the time you say go, the problem is there. Okay. You know, so his frustration, unfortunately, is indicative of the dysfunction in the system.
Absolutely.
Mr. Nyaetok, what's your take on that? Because, you know, many over time have accused the National Assembly, or rather have labeled the National Assembly as a rubber stamp. But here it would seem, right in the presence of the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the President commented his disagreement. What do you make of this?
Okay. The very first thing is that anybody who expects a dog to meow or a cat to bark. The problem is not with the dog that cannot meow or the cat that cannot bark, but with the person who has brain and he's expecting that. You see, I've been the national chairman of a party, and I can tell you this with every sense of responsibility. I once contested the vice presidency of IPAC, and IPAC is the body of chairmen of political parties. And the statement I made that drew so much ovation was that every party is government, either in waiting or in action. Where while you are in waiting, you set up what you call the shadow cabinet. It's not opposition cabinet, shadow cabinet that tells you what should be done in housing, what should be done in healthcare, what should be done in technology, all the different facets. And you are in waiting. Once upon a time, PDP was government in power, and APC ought to have been government in waiting. So that the moment they come into power, they just, like my sister said, the tire hits the road. You just hit the ground running. But today, up till today, APC is not government as a party. They are not government. That's why they cannot even form in themselves to be able to have a governance structure within the party. That being the case, if there was that governance structure within the party, there would have been the think tank that my brother referred to, and issues like this would be addressed in principles. That brings me to the final point I would like to make with regards to this. These people, unfortunately, do not draw a line between governance and politics. As a matter of fact, governance does not exist. It's all about politics. What do we mean? Governance is about doing the right thing, having a vision, having a direction, evolving a game plan to be able to actualize a vision. But politics is about speaking loud and saying nothing, amassing money for the next election, and just deceiving the people and all those things. And that's why we've become the poverty capital of the world. I look forward to when men and women of conscience will come in and set up government, which will have governance, and that will bring about leadership recruitment. In fact, I don't even like leadership recruitment. I want to talk of management recruitment, because if you have any system, whether it is a company, the management of that company decides whether the company is going to do well or it's going to go down. As of today, Nigeria is looking for a coach because they want Super Eagles to do well at the football, world championship. And why can't we think that Nigeria should do well by setting up management team recruitment? Are we telling us that this is the best management team to get us out of the woods? We need to start to rethink and kind of recalibrate our mindset and start to think in terms of the proper management team for our country. That is not going to be in the hands of these people that are here. It's going to be in the hands of people that are going to come in. And I call on all Nigerians to wake up. Join a party that makes sense. Let the party become agents of recruitment for the next management team for Nigeria, not agents of electing the next governor or president. No, that mindset mentality has to completely change to become the recruitment agency for the next management team to get us out of the woods.
Have we had any experience of some of the examples that you're giving? Can you cite an example, maybe in the First Republic or in the Second Republic, of maybe a shadow government that you have suggested, or a management recruitment, a management approach to governance? Please, maybe you want to consult your history books for a second. We'll take a few messages and we'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. It's still it's the New Year edition. So again, welcome and Happy New Year. So Mr. Yatok, do we have those examples of some of the recommendations that you have made? Because there are those who would argue that if we haven't had it before, where is it going to come from?
If you do the same thing the same way, what do you expect? The same result. So we're looking for people that are willing to do something that just without even thinking about it, it makes sense. But it's good you asked that question. It's instructive because about 2 weeks ago, the National Consultative Front, led by Professor Pat Utomi, set up the shadow government in Nigeria. And I was privileged to be one of those put in the pole position to manage a certain sector. And for over the past 2 weeks, we have been brainstorming. About some days ago, you heard somebody referring to the Shagari administration and the housing schemes and looking at housing as a major driver of the economy. That happens to be my area of specialty. And we are looking at that, at housing being the next GSM, so to speak, of Nigeria, that is not going to only solve a lot of our problems, but is also going to bring a lot of money to the government. So we need to have these thinking faculties, domiciled in parties, which is what the National Consultative Front is doing. And they are hoping that they can move that into a party, and they are working with the ADC for now. They are going to bring a lot more parties together. I'm aware of the talks going on. So we are looking at Nigerians who will say, wow, this makes sense. Let me get in there. And, it's so instructive that the person you have with me, Mr. Segun Mabogunje, is one of the most resourceful persons that I've come across in my entire life. He is so knowledgeable, exposed, and people like him coming into that political arena, you don't need to contest an office, but be there to give that guidance. That's cerebral. We need cerebral governance. We are doing too much of political governance and it never works. Anywhere in the world, excellence is a statute of general application. And let me stop there for now. The Nigerian Consultative Front is already spearheading that in Nigeria today. I just want all of us to move in and give that impetus and make it work. We can't continue this way. We can't. If there's one word that we must take in this 2023, it is that we cannot continue. One expression, we can't continue this way again. Enough is enough.
Looking forward into the year ahead, into the year 2022 that we have stepped in day one, what would be some of those things that you would say, we haven't tried these? Maybe if we tried this new year, maybe it will work. You may want to add to that the conversations around community responsibility that Madam here cited earlier. What are those things that you would want to say, let's give this a shot?
Okay, I'll make this very fast because of time. Number one is that you do the same thing the same way, you get the same result.
My apologies, Mr. Yatok. That question is for Mr. Sheoma Bogunje.
Okay. I think I should start by saying that in Yatok, you flatter me. But I do agree that we can't keep doing the same thing the same way and expect the same and expect a different result. Well, let's be clear about one thing. Our politicians, or what I like to call the political class, why do they go after power? It's a fundamental question. Are they going after power to serve the people and make the system work? Or are they going into power to control and enrich themselves? If they are going into power to control and enrich themselves, then there's no way they are going to lead any change, because they are benefiting from the existing status, they are benefiting from the existing system, and it works well for them. So why would they, on their own, want to change things? It needs a different set of people with a different mindset who are really, really interested in making the system work, have the moral intelligence, have the competence and the capacity to think outside the box and make the change happen. But if we're sitting down expecting the current set of people to make any change, I mean, you said earlier, this year they are going into politics. Politics is so much more important to them than the hundreds of thousands of Nigerians dying every day, they're failing the bad roads, and all the things we see. It's not important to them. What is important to them now is who gets into power in 2023. So if you think, I mean, why would governance stop if they cared because of that, or because they want to run for power? So I really think we should not expect much from our current crop of politicians. And like my brother, Talk says, it needs a different set of people with a different set of mindsets. I don't have much expectations from our political class. And I use the word class, political class, advisedly, because in my mind, I view Nigeria from the lens of three classes of people. One is the political class, maybe 1% of the population. They control government. They are professional politics. They have no other way of sustaining themselves other than going into politics. And when they get there, all they want to do is remain there, benefit all they can from it, and stay relevant in the system. Political class, 1%. The second class of people is what I call the elite, or the middle class, if you wish. These are usually professionals, well-educated, well-exposed, knowledgeable. They have competence, but they don't engage with the system. They think politics is a dirty game. They want to sustain their lifestyle, send their children to school abroad, get treatment abroad, watch Manchester United and Arsenal, and, have nice parties with a lot of champagne and go and complain and complain and complain about the failures in the system. Maybe they are 18% of the population. But there's this 80% of the population. They are the poor, they are the disenfranchised, they are they are those that the system is not working for them at all. And they've become survivalists, they've become strugglers, they've become hand-to-mouth people. So they only care about today because they have no vision of what tomorrow could look like.
Okay.
That's why they would take 1,000 or 2,000 from the politicians and vote for them, because they have no vision of what their future will be like.
Okay.
They are also the voting population, because this same elite class I'm talking about do not vote. They complain on television, on internet, on social media, but they don't vote, and they want things to change. I think that until the middle...
Yes, my apologies. It's getting very, very interesting. Madam, those classes, I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with some of those conversations. But I'd like to draw your attention to another class. My analogy of this is, when you want to purchase a vehicle, a car, you look at the exterior and the interior decors and all of that. But many, many times, we need a specialist to look at the engine. The car is not a house. It's a mobile vehicle. Without an engine, it cannot run. The engine of the vehicle that is hardly ever seen of government is the civil service. And it would seem like when we talk about the exterior of governance, we only look at this political class that Mr. Mabogunja is talking about. But the engine that runs that government, we don't seem to pay attention.
Actually, that's a fascinating issue that you brought up. I've just finished doing 2 small assignments in Edo State, and the governor there has invested and continues to invest really heavily in completely changing the civil service. For the first time, we brought in first class and second upper graduates, in fact, offered them almost carte blanche to come into the civil service. Look, we lost a lot, I think, during the military years. The undermining of the civil service, of the bureaucracy in this country, was pretty thorough, and we haven't recovered from that yet. And I think that you have to be as intentional, at least, as Obaseki, to change that paradigm. Unless you give the civil service back their respect, and unless you are able to say to the civil service, because we've invested in you, these are legitimate expectations, I don't think you'll turn this thing around.
What have they lost? What has the civil service lost? You said they lost respect. How?
I think they've lost respect. I think they've lost regard. I mean, I think you got to a point in the civil service where you didn't really expect to be promoted on merit. You were promoted on the basis of longevity, tenure. You went from one grade level. It was very, very boring and repetitive, if you like. You just basically inched forward. No matter how good you were, no matter what you were contributing, that is not the way to pull a state or a nation forward via a civil service. You need a vibrant, you're quite right, it is the engine in the vehicle. And if it's not in the right state, if it's not well trained, if it's not well motivated, if it's not well recognized, if there's no accountability, if you don't have performance metrics, I mean, what do you expect? You'll get nothing out of it.
You're sounding like the engine has knocked.
Your analogy.
Mr. Edopolo, another class of people, if I can say that, or category, catchment in our nation that we don't usually give attention to when we talk about issues like this are the states. What kind of attention should we be given to how states are run? What responsibility would you give to the citizenry in terms of holding their elected officials, from the governor to the members of the House of Assembly to the local government chairmen and authorities, to hold them to account?
In fact, I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, and I was saying to myself, I wish that the civil society organizations could have state chapters, who will report on the states and the local governments.
Well, some of them have.
Yes, as they do the federal government. I wish that, yes, advocacy, from what you said earlier on, there's a role for advocacy. I was reading something recently, and it was like, somebody was trying to defend the federal government and say, hey, yes, you are saying X, Y, Z about the federal government, but take a look at the states. This number of states can't do this number of states are not doing this, etc., etc. I think, everybody, even the most unproductive Nigerian today blames the president for all the problems, in fairness to him, all right? So I think that people should begin to actively, hold their representatives to account. At the local government level, I mean, some communities, there is no sign of government.
Yeah.
The only time they come in is to collect either their tenement rates or whatever it is they do. But, the road has gone bad, nobody's doing anything about it. So citizen engagement, you spoke about, the communities. Yes, we will clean our communities, but beyond that, we would ask questions. There's somebody being paid, actually, to ensure that these gutters are cleaned. Who is that person? Maybe after we clean it this time, we should then go to the local council and say, we'd like to meet the councillor who is responsible for cleaning the gutters on so-and-so streets.
Doesn't the councillor live in the community?
Well, he's supposed to, but
think so, right?
Yes, 9 out of 10, he's far away.
Wow.
He only comes when elections are knocking. So I think that, we really must, citizens must really become active, not just in their little space. My house is, I have a gate, I have a security man, I'm paying for somebody to pick my refuse. I need to go beyond my house to the community. All right, we need to begin to engage at that level. Now, one other thing I wanted to say was that everybody's talking about the need to change, those who are running the show right now. How do we do that? 2 things I would say. 1, the young people need to get involved either in politics or, get your voter's card as a minimum and make up your mind to vote. And then the influencers, I mean, those who are literally, if one of them decides to come out tomorrow without combing this side of his hair, you just go out there and all the young people are leaving this side uncombed. Can those guys also begin to encourage the young people to get involved? All right? I'd like to see a Wizkid, I'd like to see a Bomber Boy telling the young people, go and get your voter's card, go and vote, go and get involved in your community.
You're reminding me of some of the things that happened in the 80s, where the apartheid battle in South Africa was won because of...
From the 70s,
advocacy, yes. Advocacy through music, through the media, and all of that. Well, it's a long haul, but I think the first step has been taken. I have to thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time and your
It's a
thoughts.
pleasure. Thank you.
Norua Idopolo, social commentator, thank you so much.
Thank you
For your time and your
Thank you.
perspectives today.
It was a pleasure.
Sheoma Bogunje, security engineer, joined us virtually with Ezekiel Yaetok, founder Nigeria First. Both joined us virtually. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning.